PhD jointly from IIT Delhi in biomedical engineering. Following his PhD, he has spent more than 3 years as postdoctoral research scientist at MIT. Dr. Gandhi was also awarded an Inspired Faculty in the Engineering and Technology category of the Department of Science and Technology, Government of India. During this 5-year tenure, he is awarded as the Excellent Inspired Faculty by DST, Government of India. His research and expertise spans from computational neuroscience, brain imaging, assistive technology, healthcare technology, machine learning, cognitive computing to artificial intelligence. He has published papers in top-ranking journals like Nature, PNAS, Current Biology, PLOS Biology. He has more than 130 publications in international journals and conference proceedings. He is PI and co-PI of nearly 15 crore funded projects from industry as well as Government of India, different organizations. He is one of the project leaders of the two Center for Excellence at AIIMS, New Delhi. That is the Center for Excellence on Advanced Epilepsy Research and Center for Excellence on Neurodevelopmental Disorder. Dr. Gandhi's work was selected as cover page in Science magazine in 2015, and he has delivered many invited talks in universities in India and abroad like Harvard, Yale, MIT, and Copenhagen. He is one of the international members to review European Union joint projects on vision sciences. He has 4 patents and 3 technology transfers to Ministry of Social Justice, India. He is serving as an expert member in various research committees in Government of India, UNESCO, as well as reviewers in many journals like IEEE, Elsevier, and Springer. Dr. Gandhi is also mentoring one AI company incubated in IIT Delhi and is a senior member, IEEE, fellow in IIT, and also received Platinum Jubilee Young Scientist Award 2015 by the National Academy of Sciences in India and the GYTI 2019 award. Presently, he is also serving as the chairperson of Project Prakash Charitable Trust that helps in restoration of sight and providing education to visually impaired in India. So on behalf of the organizers, I welcome Tapan, and I request him to kindly share his screen. Just a second. You can share your screen, Tapan. Yeah, please go ahead. You have to unmute yourself, Tapan. Your microphone is off, Tapan.
Yes.
Yeah, fine.
Oh, this is from your side.
Yeah, now we are able to hear you. You can put it in the slideshow.
So everything fine now?
Yeah. Please.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Manoj, for inviting me to deliver a talk in this event. Good morning, everybody. Today, I'll talk about human-inspired ML and AI. So this ML and AI are the buzzwords, in the current industry or the academia. So I thought that I should give you some of the basic concepts of ML and AI. Where we are really in ML and AI, right? So in my first slide, you can see here, the title here I have written that is AI everywhere? Maybe some of you might answer this question that yes, AI is everywhere. Maybe some of you might give the answer, maybe, AI is somewhere, not in, all the places. So now we'll see what do you mean by real AI. But if you look at all this picture, which I have given on the slide, you can see here, mostly we need AI to improve the quality of the life. So whether you talk about smart health, whether you will talk about humanoid robot, whether you will talk about smart car, smartphone, digital security, e-capsule, smart home, everything, everywhere we can see the so-called AI, which you are talking about that, okay, this is the AI, right? But if we'll go back 50 years back, I mean, when some of the scientists, they came together, I mean, they met in a conference in Dartmouth, and then they first coined the term AI, and this is in 1956, and today this is in 2020. And after, you just imagine, after 70 years, we are able to see AI in some places. But my question is, are we really, I mean, or are we really in the domain of, or in this, the age of AI? But sometimes I feel that no, we are not still in the age of AI. We are really far, far from AI. Maybe even I believe that it might take maybe next 40 years or 50 years to see the real kind of AI. So the question comes then what we see today, whatever I'm showing you in the slide, uh, whether these are AI or no. So my answer would be, these are not the real AI or AI agent. These are all restricted AI. Restricted means these are the technology or these are the machines we have developed for certain purpose. So certain purpose means, let's say, if we'll talk about the smart car, you all know that the whole world is working now to come up with the smart car. Smart car means, I mean, you have to just sit on the car and you have to tell your car that I want to go to, let's say, Connaught Place, and it will take me from IIT Delhi to the Connaught Place. I need not to do anything. I have to just relax in the back seat, right? This is called the smart car. Let's say if I'll talk about the smart home, you know that you can control all the appliances, everything, even being far from your home. Sometimes, I mean, okay, this is we call the smart home, and there you know that we are using the IoT and all this kind of intelligence to make our home smart. But the biggest question comes, why they are not really smart? I'll give you some of the examples in my next slides. In the slide, I'm talking about the autonomous vehicle, which I've already highlighted to you. So autonomous vehicle is where you need to give your destination to your machine or to your car, and it will drive to your destination. But the question comes, whether we'll be able to see this autonomous vehicle in India very soon. Again, the answer would be, actually, I'm very optimistic, but here in this case, I feel that most probably no. In the next 20 years, we won't be, even more than that, we won't be able to see the autonomous vehicle. Why? Just imagine you are the driver, you are driving the car, and somebody, I mean, crossing the road. What you will do? Depending on your speed, depending on your distance for the person, you will decide that how much brake you need to press, right? Just imagine you are about to cross a red light, I mean the cross point, right? And you know that you are with a certain kind of speed, and you know, or you can see that some people or few vehicles are in front of you. So according to the estimation that, okay, now from 100, it's going down 100, 99, 98, and you can see this number. And based on that, you will calculate that what is my speed, how many vehicles are in front of me, and then whether I can overtake this red light or not. Accordingly, you will press your accelerator. Just imagine you are using many kind of sensory information to take this kind of judicial decision. Let me give another example. You know that in our Indian streets, many times people drive in the wrong way, right? And as a human, I mean, okay, as a human, when you are driving, you know that, okay, these are the places, or I mean, here in India, people mostly take the, I mean, wrong way, or maybe they cross the road, and accordingly you can drive. But the autonomous vehicle, what we are designing now, they don't know all these things. They are all rule-based machine. Whatever rule we have already given to the machine, accordingly it will drive. So then my question will come, whether it will work in Indian roads in this situation, then definitely now your answer would be most probably no. So then the question comes, then how we can make our vehicles smart, or how we can give some kind of real kind of intelligence, we as a human being, what we have, so that the vehicle will drive, or the machine can take the decision by its own. So this is a multi-billion-dollar question, right? Another example I'm giving you, and this is one of the cutting-edge technology, you know, the face recognition system. And face recognition system is now being used in each and, I mean, almost all the places for the security, surveillance, for many things. Even now, you know, in this COVID situation, people are also trying to come up with the technology by which they can measure the temperature of the person. In the same time, they can recognize the person, and they will allow the person to enter to the buildings, right? Or any society or any offices like this, right? So here, until now, you will search the number of papers in this facial recognition, you might find millions of papers. But still, this is a very big challenge to recognize the face of the person, or to recognize the identity of the person. So this is again, very huge domain, that how we can develop a machine, or how, what sort of knowledge we can give to the machine so that the machine can understand the faces. So you will be surprised to know that out of all these objects, whatever you see in this visual world, face is one of the most complex objects what we encounter every day. And you know that we as a human, we have this ability, we have this remarkable ability by which we can identify the known from the unknown, right? So in the slide, you can see here, Obama is shaking hand with somebody who has no hand. He's amputee, and he's using the prosthetic hand, this is the electronics hand, and this hand is controlled by the brain signal. And this is also this is the intelligent hand. Intelligent hand means this is the hand, being controlled by the brain signal. So likewise, if I'll give you another example of the intelligence, where the machines, how we think that, okay, these are the intelligent devices. Here in this picture, the robot is holding one mobile phone. So the question is, when we are holding something, some object, how we feel our touch. So this is, I'll talk about the multimodal information linkage. This is one of the core aspects of the artificial intelligence. Let me give another example. Here, I'm showing you this picture of Cherry. Cherry is a 2-year-old baby girl, and Sophia. Sophia, the most intelligent robot in this world, right? So if I'll ask you, which is more intelligent, Cherry or Sophia? So definitely some of you might say that Sophia, some of you might say Cherry. But truly, Cherry is much more intelligent than Sophia. So here, let me show you one video here. Why it's not working? Okay. So here I just wanted to this video is not working. I wanted to show you that how the most sophisticated robot is walking, taking the stairs, and how this 2-year-old baby is taking the stair. You will see that even the most sophisticated robot, sometimes it fell down. But whereas this human, 2-year-old child can take the stairs very easily. Just imagine, in your home also, you must have observed that your kids, when they start, climbing the bed, what happens? So maybe they will fall down 3-4 times, right? After that, they learn the technique, how they'll climb the bed, right? But you just imagine, to train Sophia to do certain kind of activity, we give millions of exemplars. So here the question comes, why in case of Cherry, we don't need millions of exemplars, whereas for the Sophia, we need millions of exemplars to train the machine. So this is a very big question or big debate in the domain of science and engineering, right? Also, this is again a very good example. What this is deep learning. And nowadays, in almost all this AI application, we use deep learning to create the model. And you remember that 10 years back or 15 years back, when the ANN, when people are working in the ANN, artificial neural network, that time people are thinking that this is the real intelligence. So this is, the real kind of artificial intelligence we are doing. But now, if I'll ask you, ANN is intelligent, now you'll say that no. ANN is nowhere compared to the deep neural network. So 15 years or 20 years back, that time, the scientists, they came up with the idea that how the human brain works. And then, based on their understanding, they came up with a very simple model called the artificial neural network, which is the input layer, 1 or 2 or 3 kind of hidden layer, and then output layer. And then, as the research is moving forward, as the scientists, they try to understand more about the brain function, that how the neuron work, then they came up with this deep neural network. And I know that many of you know that the deep neural network is best nowadays. And because why? Because it can learn the features automatically. So here in this picture, you can see here all these layers process information in a very precise manner. That means, let's say layer 1, it's very specific for the edges. Layer 2, that's it works for the combination of edges. And then let's say layer 3, it's for the object models. So that means scientists observe that the human brain, the neurons in the, you know that we have more than 200 billions of neurons, and all of these neurons are specialized for certain kind of function. That means that a single neuron will not work for different kind of job. So neurons are very specific for that function. Based on this understanding, the scientists are came up with this mathematical model which talk about different layer. Different layers means all these layers would be dedicated for different kind of purpose. That's why the name we coined the deep neural network. Deep means you never know how deep it is. Maybe it's 2 layers, maybe it's 7 layers, maybe it's 100 layers, maybe 200 layers. So all these layers, they will depending on the kind of work you are going to do, right? So even, though deep neural network is the sophisticated mathematical model nowadays to create the AI system, but I feel down the timeline, again, this deep neural network will be obsolete from the market. Maybe something new will come, because until now, though we understand many things about how the brain processes the neural information, but still we don't know many things, right? Uh, that's why the biggest challenge is how we'll answer all this question. So we are at the junction of, basically we are at the cutting edge of all this domain. Let's say if I'll ask you which are the most sophisticated domain in the engineering, definitely I'll get the answer. Let's say computer vision, artificial intelligence, machine learning, NLP. So these are all cutting edge technology. But in the same time, if I'll ask you which are the biggest challenge in the health, definitely in this COVID situation, you will say that COVID is the biggest health problem. But actually, this is not the biggest health problem. The biggest health problem is all the neurodevelopmental disorders like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, epilepsy. So that's why the whole world, when Obama was the president in US in around 2012, he announced that the next frontier would be the brain mapping. We need to understand how the brain works. So if we can understand how the brain works, maybe we can take the lead in the domain of artificial intelligence, in the domain of machine learning, in the domain of robotics, and in the domain of neurodevelopmental disorder, where there is no medication, there is no solution. That's why in the slide, I had mentioned that in order to understand or in order to take the lead in all this cutting edge science and technology, we need to understand how normal brain function, to understand how brain develops. Normal brain function means, let's say if I'll try to understand how, let's say if I'll assume that my brain is normal or your brain is normal, how this brain is doing its job. Second is how the brain develops. That means when a newly born baby born, how the brain is understanding all this different perceptual information. Third is when the brain is with some certain kind of disorder. So if we can understand these 3 kind of brains, most probably we might give some of the tentative answers, which I have already raised just few minutes back. Okay. So that's why it's very important to understand how this rewriting and reformatting is happening in the brain. So as I mentioned to you, the brain is the most intelligent entity in this universe. The human brain, That's why in this creation, we are the, we are the most, intelligent creature, right? That's why it's very, very important to understand how the intelligence of the human brain works. And if we can understand this concept, so that we can mimic this understanding in the machine, so that we can call the artificially intelligent machine. That means we are putting the intelligence artificially. That's why we call the artificially intelligent, right? So here I'm talking about the rewriting, reformatting. That means, so here I'm just showing you. Let's say if somebody, that in this brain, in our brain, we have mostly, 4 different areas of the brain. We call the frontal lobe, occipital lobe, temporal lobe, parietal lobe. These are the 4 big lobes, and they control many of our sensory, perceptual stuff, right? So the back part of the brain, which is I'm highlighting here, the back part. I mean, this is also I'm taking the temporal, but only the back part of your brain is called the visual cortex, which is responsible for the vision. And you will be, I mean, you will be surprised to know that the biology, they don't sit idle. That means the brain always do their work. The neurons always do their work. So you should not feel that brain, I mean, when you are sleeping, the brain is not working. Brain is always 100% active. I mean, the neurons, they don't sit idle. So just imagine the visual cortex, which is helping us to see this beautiful world. And if just assume that the visual cortex is not doing, I mean, somebody born blind, that means the visual cortex is not doing its job. That means the visual cortex is not remaining idle, rather than it's being used for some other sensory modality, like let's say maybe audition, maybe for touch, right? So my question is, let's say if this is the case, and I'm showing you in this picture, you can see here, these are the different lobes of the brain. The frontal lobe, I mean, which is the pink in color, which is responsible for the smell. You can see here, the green color is the temporal lobe, which is responsible for the hearing. The back part, the violet color, responsible for the vision. And the you can see here the region, I mean, interface of this frontal region, the parietal lobe, it's called the touch region, the somatosensory area, somatosensory, and the, I mean, the motor area over there. So the question is, when somebody is blind, born blind, what will happen to this region of the brain? If somebody is born with no leg, he is not able to run, what will happen to this area? If somebody born with having no auditory perception, what will happen to this auditory cortex, right? So again, the question comes, if somebody born blind and then you replaced, I mean, you allow the person to see just by some visual prosthesis, then again, what will happen, or how the visual cortex will regain its function? Let's say the person who was born amputee, but now he's running with this prosthesis leg, then again, how the brain will reorganize the resources. So these are a very, very interesting aspect of the brain. We call the brain plasticity, how the brain will learn all this aspect. So if we can understand all this phenomenon, most probably we can take a very big lead in the domain of artificial intelligence, right? So here, I'll talk about a very interesting project. What we do, I mean, we pursue, I mean, we do in India. So here in the slide, you can see here, can we restore sight to the blind? So as a vision scientist, as a vision researcher, this question came to our mind maybe 15 years back, around 2006 or 2005. So when, I mean, let's say in the computer vision, exactly what we are doing, we develop some kind of model, or we try to make our machine to see. So the first question comes to our mind, that do we understand as a human being how we learn to see? Let's say if I'll show you that, and if I'll show you and if I'll ask you what is this, you will say this is a bottle. But if I'll ask you how you know that this is a bottle, you might give the answer that okay, maybe somebody taught me that this is a bottle, or the bottle looks like this, that's why this is a bottle. But is it possible to know that how your brain learned this concept that this is a bottle? So if you see the literature, you will hardly find any good literature to tell that how we learn all this visual concept. That's why 15 years back, this question came to our mind, that how human learn this aspect, or how human learn all this object concept. So if we can learn this basic fundamental principle, then most probably we can develop the most sophisticated AI system in this world. So then the question comes that is it possible? Is it possible to understand that how as a human being we learn this object, that how we perceive this object? Then the answer comes that okay, maybe in order to answer this question, maybe we need to track that how a newly born baby develops the visual perception. But again, then we ask this question to ourselves, that is it possible to study the newly born baby? And if it's possible, then why the whole, I mean, the scientists in the world, they have not done rigorous studies in this aspect? And what we found, that it's really very hard to do research on the newly born baby, because the newly born baby, they, I mean, okay, they don't know. Let's say if you are going to do any experiment on the newly born baby, they will not cooperate with you because they don't know what you're doing. The second thing is, it's really very hard very challenging. And also in the same time, ethically, it's not plausible. I mean, ethical body might not allow you to do the research on the newly born baby. That's why there is no data, no fruitful data to understand that how as a human being we learn this visual concept. That's why we came up with one idea that is it possible that if somebody born blind has not seen anything, and by miracle, if we can restore sight to this blind and we allow them to see, then most probably we might get a chance to track the visual development, that how they learn to see. Just imagine somebody born blind, has not seen anything, and he is 15 years old or 20 years old. He's already grown up. And just imagine that by miracle, we restore the sight to that blind person, and as he is already adult, now we can do the rigorous experimentation to understand how this person is able to learn. Okay, so this is the brain and these are the neurons, you know. Okay, so this is, I say this is defining a big goal. This is most important, to define a big goal to address a big question, right? So coming to this very, I mean, sad picture of India, you will be also surprised to know that 1 in every 100 Indians is blind. So India is the house for nearly 50% blind population in the whole world. So this is a very big problem for the country like India. And the incidence of childhood blindness in India is 3 times that in the West. And these are the most probable causes for the blindness. Corneal scarring. Cornea means you know that the eye, the cornea. I mean, if there is any injury in the cornea. Cataract. Cataract means motiabin. In India, we call them motiabin. And you must be familiar with the old age cataracts. I mean, old people that develop the cataracts. But if the child by birth develops the cataract, then also they are destined to be blind. They will be blind. Then comes the retinal dystrophies. Retinal dystrophies means if the retina will be detached, then the person will get blind. Then comes the infection. You know that in India, 80% people lives in the villages where the healthcare facility is very, very poor. Even the hospital are not properly sanitized. That's why due to the infection also, the child is also prone to get blind. And then finally, the congenital rubella syndrome. This is the viral infection. And you know that many mothers, most of the mothers in the villages, they don't get vaccinated for this rubella syndrome. That's why the childhood blindness is very huge in our country, right? You can see here, I'm showing this picture, how this cataract or the corneal opacity looks like. So out of all this blindness, 40% of childhood blindness in India is either preventable or treatable. But due to lack of knowledge, lack of infrastructure, we are not able to address this problem. So due to the blindness, I mean, the children, those who are born with blindness, they are having some kind of, I mean, problem. You know, you can see here in this picture I'm showing you that the lifespan of blind child is 15 years less than their normal counterpart. The childhood mortality is more than 50%. That means the child born with blindness, they don't get a chance to see their second birthday. And when they're blind, the education prospect is also very less. And as the education prospect is also very less, the employment prospect is also very less. That's why the country like India, we are losing nearly 10 billion US dollar every year due to the unproductivity of this blind population. So the pressing humanitarian need is providing treatment to curably blind children. So the big question is, can the brain, I mean, okay, is it possible the blind person can see? And this is a very big question in the domain of science. So when we started this work, we came across many important journals, milestone journals, and also these 2 Nobel laureate, David Hubel and Thorsten Wurzell, those who got the Nobel Prize in 1981, and they have came up with one hypothesis called the critical period hypothesis. And that hypothesis says this critical period, and this is one of the most prominent hypotheses in the medical science. And it says that if somebody born blind, let's say you are born all right, and after the birth, I'll put you in a very dark room. And in the dark room, I provided you the food, drink, everything. And let's say you are in the dark room in the first 3 months. And after 3 months, when I'll bring you to this lighted part of this world, most probably you might not be able to see this visual world. So that means the neural pruning or the neural specialization happens just after the birth. So these two scientists conducted many studies on the animals, and they found the animals are showing this kind of response. I mean, they did study on the kittens, and after the birth of the kitten, they put in the dark room, and they found the kitten had lost the vision. And this is not for the vision. I mean, it will also happen for the same. I mean, similarly for the audition, for the other sensory abilities. So that's why the country like India or any other places, when somebody born blind and when they used to come to the hospital at the age of 20 years, they get the answer that it's not possible to restore sight. But here we found one lacuna in all the study. We found that all of the study has been reported on the animal. So we asked ourselves this question: that is it possible for the human? Okay. So then this project was being, launched by Professor Tapan. He is professor at MIT, and that time I joined for my PhD with him. And this is called the Project Prakash. This is a project which has two sides: one the humanitarian aspect, and another the scientific quest. And the project called the Project Prakash. So the Project Prakash, the Prakash word is from the Sanskrit word, and Prakash means to bring the light in the lives of the blind. That's why we call the Project Prakash. And in this project, this is the headquarters. I mean, we have the center in Delhi. We have the office in Delhi. We do outreach, which go to different states: Delhi, Haryana, Madhya Pradesh, Uttarakhand, MP, UP, and we do the screening of all these children, and we bring them to Delhi for the treatment. And when we do the treatment, we start doing the research. And in the research, we answer many questions in the domain of science, as well as those questions will help us to understand the crux of the artificial intelligence or the machine learning. And fourth is, we provide education to these children, those who are born blind and they have not been to the normal school, and we try to bring them to the mainstream society so that they can live just like the normal human being lives with dignity. So you can see here, this is snapshots that the doctor doing the surgery. Then we do the research to understand how vision develops after sight onset. But the big question is whether vision develops after sight onset, whether it's possible. This person is 19 years old person who was blind since birth, and then we operated this person and we try to understand whether the brain will learn this or not. So again, you can see here, this is the picture I'm showing you: 8 years old boy and 22 years old. I mean, the age range is very wide. My question is whether their brain is still plastic or not, whether the brain will recognize the things or not. Because what we see every day, this is not the job of only eye. This is the job of both eye and the brain. If one of them will not work, you won't be able to see this visual world. So in order to see all this beautiful world, your brain and eyes should work together, right? So when the child come to us, when we bring them to Delhi, we do many different kind of experiment before their surgery, before their sight onset, and when they start seeing this visual world. I'm not going into details of all this experiment. I'll just highlight few of the things. This is one of the setup. I mean, you can see, I mean, this is called the MRI. If you go in a diagnostic center, you will find this sophisticated machine. This is a magnetic resonance imaging machine, and it can image your whole body, your brain, everything, right? And after taking all these images, you can analyze the different kind of things what you're looking for. So here I'm just showing you one brain imaging. So okay, so from the brain we get thousands of images, and from these thousands of images, after processing these images, we try to find out the pattern, right? So I'm showing you here. I'm not going into details. This is, I mean, one kind of simple kind of technique we call the resting state functional connectivity. Resting state functional connectivity means when your brain is not doing any active task, I mean, it's resting. And that time we are imaging the brain and how the brain is responding, how the neurons, what the neurons are doing, we try to image those things. So this image, what I'm showing you here, these are only the visual cortex, the image of the visual cortex and you can see here T-2, T+7, T+30, T+120. That means T-2 means it's a timeline. timelines means T-2. That means 2 days before surgery. That when the person was blind, has not seen anything. This is that time we image their brain. T+7 means 7 days after surgery. So after surgery, 7 days we image the brain. 30 days after the surgery. And this is 120 days. That means after 4 months of the sight onset, when they start seeing, right? And you can see here, red, blue, and yellow patches in this brain images, right? Actually, these are after doing rigorous image processing, we found this kind of pattern. And what this pattern says, in the first picture, T-2, when the person is blind, you can see there's two big hotspots, two big yellow spots, right? And these two big yellow spots means the neurons are firing and they're firing synchronously. They're highly correlated with each other. Let's say if I'll give you an example from the electronics or computer science, let's say we want to encode the information. Let's say I'm talking about 2-bit, let's say 2-bit encoding system. This is my 2-bit. When these 2 bits are dependent on each other, let's say these 2 bits are dependent. And if I'll ask you how many ways these 2 bits will encode information, then the answer would be definitely 2 ways because they're dependent on each other. Either it would be 1 or it would be 0. Both would be 0 or both would be 1 because they are dependent on each other. And we call this a highly correlated, right? If I'll make them independent in nature, independent means either they would be 0 or 0, 1 or 1, 0 or 1, 1. So when they are becoming independent, they are encoding 4 different kind of information. Whereas when they are dependent on each other, they can only encode 2 kind of information. So this is what is happening in this picture. You can see here. So in this brain also, initially the neurons are highly correlated. That means they depend on each other. That's why you can see here high, 2 hotspot. After 7 days also, these hotspots are similar, a little bit bigger. But after 30 days, you can see they are getting defragmented. That means the correlation is coming down, the decorrelation is increasing. And after 120 days, you can see here, the neurons are getting more independent in nature. That means when they will become more independent, then they will encode more information, as I explained to you. That means the brain is learning the visual concept. So we found almost all the subjects along the time, after the surgery, their visual cortex, their brain is able to learn this visual concept. So this is one idea we proved that yes, scientifically, the blind, those who are born blind, they're able to see just after the sight onset, right? And this is the first time we proved that how the brain, the visual cortex, after being deprived of the vision since last, let's say, 20 years, how they learn to see. I'm not going into details about all this. These are all, high level of things. I'm just coming down to other things. For our machine learning or artificial intelligence kind of things. So actually, okay, we have until now, we have, screened more than 50,000 children. We have treated more than 700 blind, those who are blind. But today, they are the sum of the blind children from India, different parts of India. And now they are just like you and me. They can see, they were not able to see, but through our research, they are able to see now. And this is a tiny percentage of the blind population we have until now have touched, but there are many millions of blinds, those who are about to receive this kind of light. And we are working in this domain. So coming to this multimodal information linkage, this is the part of the artificial intelligence. This is what I would like to highlight, that how the human experimentation will allow us to understand all this beautiful concept of the artificial intelligence. So here in this picture, you can see here, this child is holding this mobile phone. So my question is, how do we predict the visual appearance of an object based on how it feels to touch? Is this mapping innate or does it need to be learned? So basically, as a human being, actually in this whole world, we have 3 groups of scientists. One group, who believes that as a human being, we are born with all this beautiful intelligent concept in the brain. That means by birth, we are already having all this architecture and we know how to recognize faces or how to do all the sensory functions. And another group of scientists, they believe that we are born with blank slate and we learn through our experience. And the third group of scientists, they believe that we born with some kind of intelligence and through our experience, we develop all the skills. So this is a very beautiful, beautiful concept we call the nature-nurture debate. Nature means by nature, what we are, which are the quality we are developed, we are born with. And nurture means through our experience, which are the ability we learn, right? So here, this is a very big question, and we answer this question and in a very simplistic way. So this is, Molyneux, he's a very famous scientist in 17th century, right? And this scientist wrote a very interesting letter to John Locke. John Locke is another scientist. They are all big philosophers. And the scientist wrote an, letter to John Locke. Molyneux wrote a letter to John Locke. And in this letter, Molyneux wrote, that suppose a man born blind and taught by touch to distinguish between a cube and a sphere. And the question is, let's say the blind man, the man who is born blind, he is able to see now. And now you will ask this question, let's say the man who was born blind and know these two different objects by touch. Let me give you an example. Let's say, let me take two objects. Let's say in this two object, let's say you are born blind, and in my hand I have a pen and I have a pencil, and I gave, let's say you are blind, completely blind, you have no experience, visual experience, and I'll ask you just touch these two objects and remember that this is a pencil and this is a pen, right? And just think, just assume that all of a sudden next day you are able to see. Let's say by miracle I'll make you to see, right? And now you can see. And now what I'll do, I'll place these two objects, pencil and pen, in front of you on your table, and I'll ask you, don't touch this object, just look at this object and tell me which one is what. So my question is whether the person, or whether you are able to tell that this is a pencil, this is a pen, whether you are able to tell or not. This is what Molyneux wrote to John Locke in 17th century. And in last 300 years, many scientists try to answer this question, and nobody really able to answer this question. They publish paper in Nature and big journals, but still the question are unanswered. And that's why it is mentioned, in the Stanford, if you go to Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, it's written that there is no problem in the history of philosophy or perception that has provoked more thought than the problem that Molyneux raised in 1688. In this sense, Molyneux problem is one of the fruitful thought experiments ever proposed in the history of philosophy, right? So this is a very big problem. And what we did, okay, I'm not going details into the experiment, just I'll tell you what we answered for this question. So we created some kind of stimuli like this. Let's say we also designed this kind of stimuli. And here we did three kind of experiment. One is called the touch to touch. Touch to touch means, let's say this is a pen. Let's say you are more blind, and let's say now you are normal. Let's say you are normal, and I put a blindfold on your eye. I'll make you temporarily blind, and I'll give you this pen, and I'll ask you just touch it, right? And you feel it, okay, how it looks like. Then what I'll give, I'll mix with the pencil, and I'll give you these two objects to touch, and I'll ask you just tell me which one I had given you to touch earlier. If you will say pen, then your answer is correct. If you will tell the pencil, then answer is wrong, right? This is called touch to touch, right? I gave you touch and I ask you in the touch domain. Let's say in the second case, you are again blindfolded, and when you are blindfolded, I gave you this one to touch, and then I take it out, and then I mix this two with pencil, and then I place these two objects on your table, and I remove your blindfold, and I'll ask you, don't touch this, just looking at these two objects, tell me which one I had given you. If you say this one, then this is correct. If you say pencil, then this is wrong. This is called touch to vision, right? Then another way is called the vision to vision. Let's say I'll allow you to see this object. Let's say this is a target. Mix with this distractor, and I'll place again in front of you, and I'll ask you which one I had given you to see. This is called the vision to vision. And what we found, you can see here, with the blind children, after, okay, when they're blind, we did this experiment. And within 48 hours, we conducted this experiment. And we found, you can see here, in touch to touch and vision to vision, they are nearly 100%. They're doing very well. Okay. But what happens to the touch to vision, which is called the cross model? You can see here, in touch to vision, they're not able to perform better, good, like the unimodal perception, right? That means for the Molyneux question, we found that the Molyneux is likely to have a negative answer. The person who is born blind and know by touch is not able to tell by visual ability, right? But interestingly, we found a very interesting trend in this data. What we found? That when we tested this thing in this cross-modal domain after 7 days, we found all of these children are achieving nearly 100%. So we published this paper in Nature Neuroscience, it is Nature. And the same day, when we published this paper in Nature, the New York Times in US, they published our things on the front page. The first page of the New York Times was dedicated for the research that finally, after 300 years, the blind children of India answered this long-standing question. So here my question is, how it's related to the artificial intelligence? Because, okay, let me give another example. When you are talking to your parents, let's say you are in a hostel and you are talking to your mom. And when you are talking to your mom, you are hearing her voice, but at the same time, you can visualize how she looks, right? Just imagine you are standing and I'll ask you, show me your hand, and you will show me your hand and I'll give you some object, right? And I'll ask you, don't look at this object, just feel it, how it look like. You can do it very easily. This is called cross-modal mapping. From cross-modal means you are visualizing or you are feeling one sensory modality in the other domain, okay? And this is one of the best intelligent ability what we have. That's why in one side I can say that we are intelligent because of that how our 5 sensory modality they talk to each other, okay? So here, okay, so here I'm giving you a very interesting example. I'm showing you 2 figures, right? And I'm giving you 2 names. 2 names is Maluma and Takiti. And I'm showing you 2 figures. And if I'll ask you, can you name this? Okay, just name this 2 figure out of this. I've given you 2 name, 2 figure. Which one is Maluma and which one Takiti? If I'll ask this question, maybe some of you will answer this question that the first figure would be Maluma, second figure would be Takiti. And maybe some of you will say, no. First figure is Takiti, second figure is Maluma. And this is a very big question in the domain of computer science. And many researchers have done studies, and most of the people found that this left-hand picture is Takiti and the right-hand picture is Maluma. So here the big question is, even, if you'll ask yourself, maybe many of you are thinking that maybe the right-hand side is Maluma because Maluma is smoother, Takiti is sort of zigzag type, right? So the question is how your brain understand this aspect when we didn't tell you that which one is Maluma and which one Takiti. So this is the real kind of intelligence. This is what we need to understand. And if we can understand, we can answer many questions in the domain of artificial intelligence in the machine. So here I'm giving one example. The child is holding in the engineering domain, what we do in the engineering. Let's say when the child is holding this mobile phone, we get some kind of haptic features. We call the haptic features. Let's say these are called H0 to HN. And the same time when he's watching the mobile phone, also we are getting some visual features, V1, V2 to Vn. And somehow the brain is able to establish a mapping between our haptic features to the visual features. And this is how the child is able to sense or having this cross-modal mapping ability, right? Let me give you another example. When the newscaster is reading the news, what do you feel that where the voice is coming? Definitely you all feel that the voice is coming from the mouth of the news speaker. But truly the voice comes from the speaker which is placed in the side of your television. But then the question comes, why we feel that the voice is coming from the mouth of this person? So we conducted this study, just putting some visual sensor and also recording the audio. And when we applied some kind of simple correlation of this visual sensor and the audio, we could create a heat map like this. That means the features around the mouth is highly correlated. That means the motion sensor, which are located at the mouth, giving the high correlation. That's why maybe we feel that the voice is coming from the mouth. So looking at this correlation, we can create a lookup table, just like we do in the computer science, that for the mouth configuration 1, we know that this is a sound configuration. For mouth configuration 2, this is sound configuration 2. And if we create a lookup table like this, and the end of this creating the lookup table, if somebody will ask you that for this mouth configuration, what would be the sound configuration? And you can easily tell. Okay. So from all this experiment, from this real kind experiment, and also from the human being, from the project Prakash, the blind subjects, what we understood that how this cross-modal mapping is established, what we found that the dynamics of the environment plays a very, very important role. Let's say in the robotics, what we do, we program the robot at the very outset, and we call that this is the intelligent robot. But truly, if this is the case, then why the blind children, those who are already adult, let's say 15 years blind, all blind, they know everything by other sensory modality, but still why they are not able to tell just looking at these two objects. So that means we should not program the robot very, from very outset. We need to give some kind of knowledge, and we'll force the robot or force the machine to learn by its own. I'll show you some other kind of very interesting example that how you can create this kind of thing. Let me, just I'm showing you some human experimental data. Let me share another slide with you. Okay, now you can see another slide I'm showing you here. So here I'm talking about, again, okay, let me give another example. That's a face recognition or face perception, how we recognize the faces. So this is a very big question. So people see, people measure the visual acuity of a child, that how the child see the mother's face, and the child does not see the mother the way we see the clear image. They see the blurred image, very, very blurred, blind kind of vision. So this is a very big question, that why the child is having blind kind of vision. And through our study, through our computational as well as the human experimental data, we found that this is a very, very important aspect of our development. If the child will not start with a blurred vision, most probably the child is not able to see the world the way today we are seeing, right? So here I've written, the newborn start with poor visual acuity due to retinal and cortical immaturity. That means our retina and the cortex of the brain are immature. That's why the newly born is having they cannot see the clearly to the mom or somebody else, right? So so here we had a chance to to examine one child from China, and we experimented on this child in US. So what we found, the child was born blind, and then the child was adopted by some US parent, and then brought to US. And then when he came to US, they operated the child, and what they found, the child is not able to recognize the human faces. So then we, at the time also we had lots of experience working with the Indian blinds, and the same time also we experimented with this kid, and we found very interesting aspects or very interesting findings from this research. So what we found, so as I mentioned to you, so here I've written, a brief period of visual deprivation can lead to face identification deficit, which I explained the critical period of face learning. Critical period hypothesis already I explained to you. So, so in this case of this child, when the child, the child age since the birth, he was not able to see because he was born blind. And after a certain age, let's say the child was operated at the age of, let's say, 6 years. The visual, the retinal maturity happens, the cortical, the brain maturity already happens. But at the same time, there is no vision. The visual perception is not developed, right? So when the child, after the surgery, when the child is exposed to the high visual acuity images, then age, the retinal maturity already happens, and the visual cortex already matured. That's why the child has no chance to develop all this fine skill by which they can see this visual world clearly, right? So in this picture, if I'll ask you, can you see a horse? Definitely it's a blurred picture. And this is how a newly born baby see this world. I mean, after the birth of a child, the child see the world in this fashion. Okay. And here, when I'm asking you, definitely you are doing local search. I mean, sorry, you are doing the global search. That means you are going each and every corner of this image to find it out where, if there is some horse, right? But at the same time, if I'll show you this kind of picture, first time I'll show you this picture, and if I'll ask you, where is the horse? And you can directly go to this image that this is the horse, right? So here, you need not to do the global search, you need to do the local search, right? So the problem is, when you do the local search, you are only focused on only particular region, not the whole region. And if we'll focus on the particular region, then our learning will not happen in a very big way. See this kind of image, we are forcing our brain to learn more object properties, right? And this is exactly what is happening in the newly born baby, right? So this is a computational model. What we found, you can see here in this picture, in the left side picture, and these are all receptive field. You know, in the machine learning, when you train our model, we talk about the receptive field. So what we found, in case of this human being, if the child start with, I mean, also what we found, this the child called the name called the RK, that age the child starts learning with a very high visual acuity. That's why the learning is not happening properly. That means that the cortical maturity, the retinal maturity already happened. So that's why we thought that maybe the machine learning also, I mean, we need to develop this kind of model by which we can also make the model robust by following how the human learn this visual concept. That's why what we did here, all this kind of images you can see here, these are all, I mean, the left side images, the face images are the clear image, and if you move towards right, these are all looks blurred, right? And these are the shape of the receptive field. What you can see in this 10, I mean, we have taken the best 10 receptive fields to show you. And you can see here, when you are taking the clear picture, the width of the receptive fields are very narrow in nature. But if you go towards right, and you can see here for the blurred images, the receptive fields are wider. Okay, so the receptive fields are becoming wider to accommodate more visual information. And if from the initial training we make our receptive field more wider, it can learn in a very better way. So this is what we found. I mean, what we did, then we trained the model with, I mean, different kind of combination we took. We took the blurred images to the high resolution images. We took high resolution images to the blurred images, blurred to blurred, and high resolution images to high resolution images. But then what we found, you can see here that receptive field size as well as the training efficiency, you can see when you are training your system with the blurred images, that your system will recognize better when you are trained with high resolution images. And this is a computational model I'm presenting to you. In the same time, this is the data, or this is the inference we found from the human experimental data. So when you are going to create the real kind of machine learning or the artificial intelligence, you need to understand that how this is happening in the human being. So if you can explain all this phenomenon, most probably you can you are able to answer many big questions of the science today. So going back to my first slide. Okay, going back to my first slide, we are also doing many different kind of experiment to take the inference from the human brain, that how human brain drawing all this beautiful aspects in our life. Another example I'm just giving you, that also we are working on this document reader. That means that as a human being, let's say if I'll give you this Devanagari character, as a human being, if I'll ask you how you read it. You can do it. But if I'll give this letter to the machine, most probably machine will fail, right? So the big question is, as a human being, how we can read this character or how we can learn where the machine cannot learn. So this is how we are doing. I mean, we are trying to take the inference from the human brain or how the human eye see it, and then we are trying to develop the AI algorithm, giving the human inferences to this model so that the model can identify this letter the way human learns, right? So these are the some of the examples in the domain of natural intelligence and artificial intelligence. And I feel in order to take the lead, you need to, in order to take the lead in both machine intelligence or this AI, you need to do very, fundamental research on the human being, all on the biological creatures, that how we are intelligent or how, which aspect of our life makes us intelligent, right? And this is what I am talking about, the New York Times. I mean, this Molyneux query, which I presented to you, it is published in the front page of the New York Times, and they mentioned that this is after 300 years, the scientists and the blind children of India answered this question. And some of our studies published in all top ranking journals and then highlighted in different news outlets like Hindu, Wall Street Journal, also, you know, the Science magazine, this one of the top-notch journal in this world. Also, our work, this is the picture from my lab, when we are doing the experiment with these blind kids with the brain signal acquisition and all the stuff, and it's being highlighted in different magazine in the Germany, and also Netflix, Discovery also covering all the stories. Also, some of the snapshots of the work, published in different MIT News, Harvard, and these are the documentaries being prepared by the Netflix, and also already is published, available in the YouTube. This is the snapshot from my lab at IIT Delhi. And then finally, this is okay, I'm not going to talk about, okay, this is some of the paintings created by the blind children after they get back their sight. And finally, here I'd like to finish my presentation. So if you create or if you define a big goal, you can have a broader impact on the society in a very large scale. This is what I wanted to, this is the big message I wanted to give you. Just instead of doing random kind of research, try to think about some kind of research which can impact the society or which can help the society, in the same time, which will help you to develop the next generation technology. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your attention. If you have any question, I'd love to answer your question, please. Now the stage is open for you, and now you can ask the question.
Thank you, Professor Tapan. In addition to the scientific research, you are doing a wonderful job on humanitarian grounds. I really appreciate and congratulate you for this amazing work. And now I'm going to take some quick questions for you. So the first question is by Mr. Abhijit. Can we understand Alzheimer or any brain disorder with such kind of brain mapping?
Yeah, this is a very good question. So the good question, why this is a good question, as I mentioned to you, the biggest problem in the healthcare, in the health domain, all the neurodevelopmental disorder, like just I mentioned to you, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, autism, epilepsy. There is no direct, there is no targeted medicine for all this kind of disorder, because until now, we don't understand that why this is happening. And that's why I mentioned to you, not only me, the all leading leaders in the world, they've already mentioned that this is the age of to understand the human brain. So if we'll understand, that's why I mentioned to you, we need to understand how the normal brain develops, how the normal brain is working, and what happens when somebody is having some kind of disorder. So if we can understand all this, the neural mechanism of all these different kind of phenomena in our life, most probably we can answer this question. And the way the scientists are working in this area, most probably in next 20 years, we'll be able to unlock why this is happening, and how we can treat this kind of neurodevelopmental disorder like Alzheimer's. So until now, there is no solution, but down the timeline, I feel that I hope that we'll definitely find some answer for this problem.
Thank you, Professor Tapan. The next question is by Mr. Ravi Karan. He asks, are there any tests other than Turing test which can be used to evaluate the quality of a strong AI as opposed to narrow AI?
See, I mean, every day the scientist or the programmer, they are coming up with one, I mean, okay, this model or that model, okay? But the biggest question lies that do we understand the real intelligence? So until unless we understand this question, we cannot answer this big question. I mean, to make or to validate our AI model. So first of all, just like I mentioned to you, that when we are driving the car, how we take all this kind of judicious decision. Do we understand this phenomenon? So the answer is no. If we don't understand, then we cannot create, I mean, any kind of this Turing test kind of thing to validate our AI model, right? So I hope that you understood. I mean, you ask yourself that why I am intelligent, and do you have all this kind of understanding, or if I understand all this kind of thing, can I implement in the message?
Quite right. So the next question is pertaining to deep learning models. Uh, Mr. Dharmendra asks, how many training examples are required by any DL model? Any relationship between size of data versus the number of layers in DL model? I mean, he asks, is there any range of data size, lower and upper limit of data size? Yeah.
Even I also don't know. Nobody knows this because that's why see, scientists are very clever. That's why they've given
it's a trial sort of thing.
That's why they give deep neural network. Deep means they will not tell how many layers. Deep maybe 40, 60, because as I mentioned to you, our neurons are very specific for specific kind of job. Just let's say if when I see the bottle, maybe 4 different layers are working for this. When I see the human faces, maybe 20 layers are working for this. So it will vary from objects to objects, or from different scenario to different scenario. So that's why it's very difficult to say that how many exemplars you need to train your model, or how many layers you need to train your model.
So the next question is, can you repeat the technique used by blind to see and deaf to hear? I mean, the person is asking about the technique.
So actually, okay, we are not using any kind of, very sophisticated techniques. What we are doing, we just work against one medical hypothesis, which is called the critical period hypothesis. So what we are doing, we are doing the surgery. So basically, the eye was fine. What we found, that eye is intact. Brain is absolutely fine. Brain is absolutely doing fine. So, but somehow the information is not entering to the eye or the brain, reaching to the brain. So what we are doing, we are just removing the cataract layer. I mean, those who are born with cataract, we are removing this layer, and we are allowing this, the information to pass from the eye to the brain, and we are tracking all this kind of ability. So until now, we have not developed any kind of technique by which we can help the blinds to learn as soon as possible. But now we are trying to understand just by nature or naturally how they're learning all this kind of things. Okay, this is what is happening. This is a whole biological process.
The next question is, how critical are computational power and learning algorithm design for the development of a general AI? Would it be beneficial to focus on simpler algorithms and more complex neural structures, or vice versa?
This is a very big question. So always I feel that whatever the big questions in this world can be solved by such simple approach. As a scientist, you should always try to answer big question, just taking a simple step. Don't try to make your things very complex. And if you try to make it complex, it would be very difficult to, answer your question in the right way. So always try to simplify your model. So again, again, the deep neural network, what I'm showing you, or whatever we are doing, these are all static kind of network. But now the scientist is finding that these are all dynamic kind of things what is happening in the human brain. So can we come up with this dynamic model? And definitely, again and again, I'm telling you that the model which actually the real intelligent model, though it looks very complex, but the answer lies in a very simplistic solution. So always try to answer big question through a very simplistic means. Then the science and technology would be very, very simple.
Very well, sir. So, is this AI is also helpful in some people who are not able to speak by birth? I mean, they are.
Yes, see, again, AI is nothing, AI, I told you that these are the restricted, one kind of restricted agent. That means, yes, we can use some kind of application. If somebody is not able to speak since birth, can we tape some of the residual ability of that person and convert to some kind of signal? And if we can do that, then we can call this is also AI. Or I mean, basically we are creating one kind of model which will do that certain kind of function. Okay, and it's possible. There are many work. Even in my level, so we have done many work in this area. I mean, yeah, this is doable.
So the next question is by Mr. Ravindran. Sir, can you talk about brain-computer interface for disorder of consciousness? I mean,
see, again, consciousness is also a big area people are looking at. That how, I mean, what is the neural correlates of consciousness, and also the scientists or the engineers, those who are working in this area of the artificial intelligence, they are also trying to model consciousness. So again, I mean, coming to this brain-computer interface, you know that this is one of the very cutting-edge area, and you know that this is the area Elon Musk has already started another company called the Neural Link, and he understands that this is going to the frontier of technology. So yes, I mean, now the research, I mean, though we are we have done some kind of, or we have achieved some kind of milestone, but we are far from the real kind of things. And again, this consciousness, what we're talking about, again, scientists are also, I mean, trying to understand that how this is working, or how we have, or how we can understand this phenomenon. And most probably we can understand. If we can understand, then maybe we can create this kind of message. And so even I'll like to urge, I mean, if you are, I mean, all young minds, then please undertake research in this kind of cutting edge areas, because these are the area they bear, I mean, lots of promises, and which can answer many questions in the domain of health science, psychology, and engineering.
So the next question is by Mr. Vishwas. Talking about the part when you discuss touch to visual mapping, does our brain create a sort of 3D model in 3D space on the basis of visual input, as well as another one on the basis of the touch input, and map the 3D spaces one to one?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, this is what I mentioned to you, that this is the remarkable job being done by our brain. The brain is somehow establishing a mapping from this to that, right? And this is the real intelligence. And do you understand this thing? This is what I wanted to tell you, that if we can understand how the brain is doing this kind of mapping, most probably, if we can understand, we can develop the mathematical model which can be implemented in the machine, and then we can call the machine is artificial intelligent machine, right?
Very well, sir. In Project Prakash, have you only used occipital lobe channels or all the brain channels?
We work with the whole brain. Just I mentioned to you, because they are born blind. That's why the occipital lobe is responsible for the vision. That's why I presented to all of you the visual cortex. But we do many different kind of experiment. Many, I mean, different. We have many published paper, and also we are running at a time maybe 30-40 experiments, different kind of experiment to map the whole brain.
So how are neural connections different in visual cortex and other regions such as smell or touch? I mean, are they different, or are the sort of connections are same?
No, neural connection, similar kind of connection of everywhere in the brain. Yeah. Yes, but how they organize all this beautiful orchestra in our life, that is more important. So as a scientist, we understand the function of one neuron, but how the group of neurons, they organize their orchestra, this is what we don't understand. This is the mystery of the brain. This is what the scientists are trying to understand.
Sir, so the last question is for the day is from my side, and other participants are also asking these questions. This question: how we can get involved in Project Prakash, whether it's on the humanitarian ground or on the scientific research basis? I mean, how we can get involved?
How we can involve? Yes, you can certainly get involved. So there are many avenues.
So what is the way in?
Yeah, so actually, okay, let me then tell you what we are doing right now. So when we started this project, that time we started as a scientist. As a scientist means, I mean, as I mentioned to you, in the computer.
Can you please switch on your video? Your video is on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So how many participants are there?
Sir, we have around 350 participants right now.
Oh, okay. Everybody is listening to me. Okay.
Yeah, everybody is listening to you. So this is the critical question of the day: how we can get involved in this?
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can see me. Okay.
Yeah.
So when we started Project Prakash, when actually, as I mentioned to you, that Professor Pavan Sinha, who is my advisor, my guru, and he's professor at MIT, and I did my PhD with him. So that time, he came up with this idea that, I mean, his lab is considered as one of the best visions lab in the world. He came up with this idea that how we can understand that how human learn this visual concept. Then he came up with this idea that, okay, we need to understand how the human brain learns. So that time we are completely scientists. We thought that maybe we can restore somebody's sight and we can do this kind of research. But slowly what we found that to whom we restore sight, these children are really very, very poor. So when we are working in Delhi in Srop Charity Eye Hospital, one guy, I mean, when we treated him, he was 14 years old. And he came to us when he's 18 years old. And he's asking us job that, okay, now I'm 18 years old and my family is very poor. So can you give some job? Then we found that he had not gone to school. And we thought that, I mean, okay, if you look for job, then what will get? He will be, I mean, get some kind of, I mean, let's say cleaning utensil in some hotel or some kind of sweeper or some kind of, I mean, this kind of job. Then that triggered us that, I mean, that forced us to think beyond this research and this thing. We thought that, are we doing the real kind of job? We got the answer, no, we are not doing the real kind of job. Because if we cannot give the right kind of opportunity to this kind of guy, or if we are not able to bring them to the mainstream society, most probably we will not fulfill our objectives. Then we told that, okay, we are going to give you 5,000 per month as a fellowship. You support your family, you need not to do any job anywhere, and we'll help you to learn, we'll teach you. And also, you know that in India also, when somebody 18 years old will come to school, nobody will take the admission, right? True. And that's a very big problem for us. So what we did, we somehow we found that one open school in Noida, and we admitted in that open school, and we also arranged some volunteers from IIT and some other places to teach the kid. And in 1 year, the kid completed up to 5th standard. And then second year, he could complete 8th standard. And in third year, he could complete up to 10th. And also he learned all this computer skill.
Wonderful.
So we thought that, okay, if we'll teach these kids, I mean, even they have not gone to school, or maybe they are going to some blind school, now they can see. So we need to use this visual ability of this person to learn. That's why we started the education initiative with this kind of program. And now, and in the education initiative, initially we started taking only the girl's child, because you know that when somebody born girl and again the blind, then the life is really very, very painful in Indian system. That's why we are started with the girls, but we are expanding for the boys also. And the girls, those who are, I mean, didn't get a chance to study, now if you meet those girls, they're very, very smart. They can speak very good English, even better than me, right? So we have, that's why we have started this charitable trust in Delhi, which I am heading. And also in the same time, we thought that, again, I mean, when we are moving forward, we are also facing many kind of challenges. Let's say, so until now, whatever we do, these are through some fund, I mean, donations. So we raise funding in US and in India. And we have very interesting, I mean, we have the CEO, we have many manpower, and me, and I'm in Delhi, and my boss, my advisor, Pavan Sinha, Prof. Pavan Sinha, he's at MIT, and we look after all this thing. So basically, we are doing our job. In the same time, we look after that how things are moving, and in the same time, even you will be surprised to know the school children in US, they also raise funding for us, for the education of the blind, for the treatment of the blind. Even, I mean, during this COVID time also, we are also supporting their family, because you will be surprised to know that in one family, all the members are blind. Even their income, the monthly income is not more than even 500-600. It's very difficult, I mean, situation. So even, I mean, let's say the blind to whom we are restoring sight, they are from different villages. So even sometimes they ask us, can we get some job in Delhi? And you know that to get a job in Delhi, though it's not very difficult, but the most difficult part is to to get, I mean, okay, you know that the quality of, I mean, the living standard in Delhi is very high. I mean, very high in the means that you need to earn a good amount of money to support your livelihood, right? And also it's really very big challenge. So we are planning that how we can provide them job in their places. Let's say if somebody from some villages in UP, is it possible to give them job in UP? So recently we have started 2 high quality eye care center in rural UP. These are one kind of small clinical center. So where we train the people in Delhi and we have set up the hospital there, one kind of small hospital. Their job is to provide the good quality eye care to the people over there. In the same time, they will provide the eye care with which is very economical, low cost. In the same time, if they find somebody blind, they will bring to Delhi, and at the same time, through this kind of clinical center, we can create some kind of job over there for the people over there, or we can even ask our people, our children to whom we are studying side and providing education, to work in those centers. So slowly we are trying to expand all over India, because our goal is to make India blind free. So now, as I mentioned to all of you, that we are just touching a very small, tiny grains in all this metrics. So we need to do lots of work. So the big thing is, the big thing is definitely we are struggling with the funding. So every year, let's say every year, if we feel that we can restore sight to 20 children, and it depends that how much funding we have, because for one kid we need to spend more than lakhs of rupees, because we don't treat the child and leave the child at age. We follow them up, because we are scientists. We also try to understand that how far the brain is learning or what is happening in the brain. So to whom we have given treatment until now, in last 15 years, we are in touch with all these kids. So I mean, these are very expensive, because even when we bring them to Delhi for the treatment, we keep them in Delhi for, let's say, 1 month. And because you know that they are very poor, even if their parents will come with them, they will lose their daily livelihood. So in order to fulfill this thing, what we do, not only we provide them free of cost surgery, the world-class surgery or world-class healthcare facility, in the same time, we compensate the wages of their parent. Let's say if they'll stay here for 1 month, and if their wages 500 rupees per day, we give them all this money. So for that, because otherwise it's very difficult to help this kind of people. They will not come for the treatment. They will say that first we need to feed ourselves, then we'll go for the treatment. Go for the treatment.
It will become very difficult to sustain.
Right. So that's why the funding is a very big problem. That's why, those who are attending this talk, you know that you can spend lots of money for your birthday. Just think about, if you can give your money for the surgery of this blind kid, for the dress of the blind kids, or the dress for this for their education, it's a very big thing. So our work is completely different from different kind of NGO you must have heard.
Yeah.
They do some kind of NGO. There is no meaning. This is actually our thing is not kind of NGO. We are contributing many important hypotheses to medical science, which is not known to the whole world. In the same time, we are providing new kind of things to the engineering domain, and the same time we are illuminating the lives of many children, those who are born blind, but now they can see like you and me. And
sir, so anybody who wants to join Project Prakash should get in touch with you.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay.
Over to Manoj.
Thank you, Tapan, for such an enlightening talk. And the number of attendees who have been benefited from your talk and from today morning session itself, it will definitely take this Project Prakash to a newer heights. That is what my take is from this side. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we are closing this session, and I request all the attendees to join in another 15 minutes for Professor Subhashish Chaudhary's talk. I've shared the link with all of you with my mail, which I've sent yesterday. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.